Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and I'm going to talk about high intensity interval training on keto. So, with high intensity interval training on keto, there's a couple considerations of context we have to look at here. If your goal is fat loss, the short answer is that low intensity steady state cardio is going to be more effective on a ketogenic diet. However, can you do high intensity interval training is also a concern. A lot of people don't want to lose their athletic performance, and they've seen studies where basically somebody tells them performance will drop on a low carbohydrate diet. So I'll tell you right now, performance will drop on a low carbohydrate diet if you're still on a carb metabolism. This is where most of the studies get their information. They mostly will test on people who are already eating carbs and then restrict those carbs, but not quite make the jump to keto metabolism, and then say, yeah, these people didn't perform as well, even though they had less gas in the tank because they didn't change systems completely. They didn't change to an electronic car. They kept the car on gasoline and just gave it less gasoline. So you have to, this video is going to explain to you that's the fundamental distinction between carb metabolism, carb restriction, and keto metabolism, carb restriction. So when you're restricting carbs on a keto diet, your body at first is going to have a very hard time using carbs for high intensity interval training. And any sort of high intensity exercise is going to be difficult at first until your body takes the time to get adapted. So everything I claim in these videos about the benefits of keto's performance is basically when people are adapted. This isn't for people within the first week of keto because they're not going to be adapted during that point. It's common sense because your body doesn't quite know how to use ketones effectively at that moment. Everybody's body is capable of using ketones. It's a natural state in our body. But for high intensity interval training, your body isn't able to produce adequately the amount of carbohydrates at first. It's not even really good at using fats and ketones at this point. And it's actually using ketones for most of the physical functions. Once you're fat adapted, it's going to start using free fatty acids for most of those physical functions, and most of the ketones you're using are going to go to your brain. So for somebody who is fat adapted, they can absolutely do high intensity interval training because they're going to start having glycogen, so carb energy, stored in their muscles. Basically, if you've been doing a keto diet for longer than a month, high intensity interval training shouldn't be a problem for you. However, if you're doing it for fat loss purposes, it's kind of a waste of your time and energy. So the reason it's a waste of your time and energy is because it's not necessarily something that's going to promote the use of fat, it's going to promote the use of carbs, so stored carbs. So your body's able to create its own carbs when you're fat adapted. It's basically going to take any excess protein that you eat, not from your muscles, or any carbohydrates from that 5% you got, and use those to be stored in your muscles for exactly this purpose, high intensity purposes, okay? So if you're doing, a lot of boxing, or let's say you're a boxer, or you play a sport, you will absolutely have enough energy to do these activities after you've been adapted. However, the first month, it's basically not possible. And that's why a lot of the people that I make plans for, if they're athletes, I tell them, listen, don't start this diet until it's the off season because you're going to need time to adapt. And then coming into the new season, you're going to have various performance benefits. A lot of the performance benefits also come from after you've been adapted. If you really deepen that adaptation and do this diet for a couple months, then when you start reincorporating carbohydrates, you're going to be able to use more carbohydrates just as effectively as a fat adapted keto person. So basically there's a study even done on, I believe it's marathon runners or triathletes, and they had fat adapted people and carb metabolism people, and basically the fat adapted people had not only a better rate of burning fat, but they also had more carbohydrates left over in their muscle afterwards. So basically they used their carbs more effectively. They only used the carbs for the small percentage of activities that actually required it. So example, for the short sprints, their body's going to start using those carbs. But then after, when they taper down and they're just keeping a pace, their body's going to keep using fat for 90% of their activity. It's the same thing with weightlifting and training, and that's what I always say, is that your body's going to use 90% of its energy, 90% of the reps you're doing are going to be from fat. If you're doing any rep range over 4 reps, you're not going to be using weight that is going to cause you to have to require carbs. 1 to 2 rep maxes, yeah, you're still going to use some carbs there. But I've even seen studies where 1 rep maxes are still, most of the eccentric part of the movement is able to be used by ketones and free fatty acids. So basically, when it comes to actually performing, you can not only do just as much, if not more, on a keto fat adapted metabolism, but even after you've been doing that and then you start adding in carbs, then you're going to be even more effective because you're going to be better at using both types of fuel. So hopefully that wasn't too convoluted. But as far as just standard ketogenic dieting, and you want to do some high intensity interval training for some sports, you're totally good to do that. But you're going to have to give it a month. And also there's some other ways to kind of hack that. You can start using exogenous ketones before the sport, which will help your body to have more of that long burning energy source. You can also take C8 caprylic acid, so that's an MCT that's very helpful in creating free fatty acid and ketones, and also for your brain health as well and brain function. But you can also then look into a targeted ketogenic diet approach, which is where basically after you've been adapted, I repeat that, because you can't just jump right into that, you can then start efficiently throwing in some carbs and using them for sports or high intensity interval training. Overall, like I said, especially based off that study with the triathletes or marathon runners, I forget which one it was, but you can Google it. It's a very popular study. If you want to do high intensity interval training, you can absolutely do that. If you've been adapted, your body will be able to use those stored carbohydrates and create its own carbs for those activities. That is what that summarizes this entire video in one sentence. Your body makes its own carbs when you're fat adapted. Okay? Write that down. That is the whole gist of doing high intensity interval training on keto. Your body makes its own carbs from excess protein and from carbs that you're eating from vegetables and the 5% that you're getting in your day. So of that 5%, that's all your body needs to make its own and store it in your muscles. It doesn't need to be eating, full carb metabolism to store this. There's people who claim that your energy system is only systemic on keto diets and that you only have free fatty acids swirling around in your blood for energy, but that's incorrect. Your body is more metabolically flexible, and it's going to use the free fatty acids from your blood and the carbohydrates stored in your muscles after you've been fat adapted for any high intensity interval training, whether it's weightlifting, triathlon, competing, Ironmans, marathons, no matter what it is, sprinting, sports, hockey, soccer, basketball, it doesn't matter. You can definitely perform them. However, there's that month fat adaptation. If you've never done this before, that is key. Okay? So hopefully this video gave you some insight. Ask me a question, I'll get back to you. And if you want to join my 60-day free keto challenge, basically where I have a free meal plan and training plan, you can also do that, link in the description. Thanks for watching. My name is Anthony Romano. Peace.